Those of us who are lead an interesting life because in the 3 or 4 or 2 or ever how many years you spend in seminary, you form some of the deepest friendships you'll have that extend for the rest of your life. And then the day comes when you graduate and you go into your first ministry, your first call to serve somewhere, and all of a sudden all of your closest and dearest friends are a million miles away. And you hear from them, you talk to them on the phone. If your name is Scrooge or Bleach, you get a single-spaced, two-sided, 8.5 by 11 letter every Christmas. And this week, David drew a picture, and so it goes. I have often likened it to a great tree that you might see on the Serengeti Plain. And you know that beneath the tree there is a deep taproot. And that supporting that deep taproot, there are other roots that go down. And those roots are your friends. For Virginia and me, it's been Nibs and Caroline and some others who, through the years, have been close to us and we have been close to them. Even though physically, geographically, that they were in North Carolina, we were in Georgia, they were in Atlanta, we were in Philadelphia. Now they're in Atlanta, and I just retired 2 months ago, and we're in South Alabama. So your friends move everywhere, but they still remain your friends. And the really interesting thing about it is they change. I mean, what I remember is the Nibs strip who had hair that came down almost to his shoulder until his mother would come to visit. And Mother Stroop was a hairdresser, and she would fix him up. Life was never quite the same without it. I didn't know that many adults that were quite as vertically challenged as Nibs. But Mother Stroop was, and she could wield a mean pair of scissors. At one point in time, Nibs and Caroline served a parish called St. Columbus. And there was another clergy couple that were friends of ours that were serving somewhere or other, I don't remember where. And I was serving a parish in North Carolina. And I was very fortunate in that it was a big, rich parish. And we were close enough to the shore that there were members of the parish who had beach houses at a place like Topsail Island. And, I mean, these poor people wanted for nothing, right? And so they would make their houses available to us when it was the off-season. So these three clergy couples that had been so close together during seminary decided that we would take continuing education time. Did you hear me? Continuing education time. And we would go to Topsail Island where we would spend afternoons and mornings in deep theological thought. I'm not going to tell you that Jack Daniels came with us, but yeah, well, he might have been there. But what I did want to tell you is that none of us had children about that time, and Nibs and Caroline had been married a little bit. Caroline, at least, had decided it was time to have children. So here we would be sitting about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, having had lunch. I'm not making this up. and I don't want to tell too much of this because you can't tell everything. But sometimes when people are trying to get pregnant, women will take their temperature to find out if their temperature is just the right time. I don't understand. I mean, I studied liturgical theology at Notre Dame. They didn't tell us anything about that. So we're there the first afternoon, and we're talking about Jacques Ellul, who was a really important theologian of the day. That kind of dates us, right? And the next thing I know is here's Caroline at the door. Nibs. 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 And they would disappear for about an hour.
story.
That would come back because. Now, I'm not sure what happened, but I do know that happened about 3 afternoons in a row, and about a month after we got home, the imminent birth of the first Nibs street child was announced. I know where Nibs comes from. There is another name that goes with Gibson and Stroop. Does anybody else know what it is? It's Preston. Gibson, Preston, Stroop. Preston is an old English word that's taken from the Greek that means nibs. You can take that to the bank, and for those of you that are studying Greek in seminary, just try that on your next. I really was grateful when the people that were organizing told me that I could have the longest time to speak. There is nothing more edifying and wonderful than to see your close friend and colleague not only be successful in ministry, but also put forth a vision of what it means to be the body of Christ in the world. Not just the church, but the people who are, as Teresa of Avila says, the eyes that see, the hands that feel, the feet that carry us into the places where Jesus would have us go. And that's what Nibs has done in his publishing, in his preaching, in his courageous speaking truth to power, and in that thing that happens when those people who are the truth-hearing folk in power, realizing what he says is true, and they still love him. I think that Nibs is like the Energizer Bunny. And I hope that the preaching will continue, and the writing will continue, and the speaking will continue, because God does